Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Derek Michaels. I am the Census Trainer and Outreach Worker for Illinois Action for Children. On the call with us this morning is Chua Vu, our Vice President, who oversees our census team, as well as Elizabeth Wilson, who's working with our team, who are our colleagues, and we'll be leading this call today. And we're going to give it another minute. I see we have about 20 attendees right now, which is just a little over half of the people we're expecting. So we're going to give everyone another minute to log in, and then we'll get started, okay? However, a few housekeeping things. If you notice, there's a chat box. If you have any questions at any time during the presentation, please just type it into the chat box, and we'll respond to it as we go along. And at the end, we will have a question and answer section. So if you want to hold your questions until then, that's fine too. Or you can just post them as we go, and we'll take a look at them, and we can break in and answer some questions that are pertinent to whatever we're discussing at the time. So just hold on a moment, and we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, well, it looks like we've got a little over half of our attendees, expected attendees, joining us. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. As I said, my name is Derek Michaels, and I am the Census Trainer and Outreach Worker for Illinois Action for Children. And we really appreciate you all joining us today for this webinar. We're going to be going over the census and how we want to promote the census and the parts you can play, as well as educating people about the census and why it's important to them, and as well as the communities in which you live. So we're going to get started here. So first off, I want to go over the agenda. We're going to be going over what the census is, why it's important, the timeline, the questionnaire itself, the actual questions that are on the census, how you can get assistance and giving assistance to people, who's often missed in the census and why. We'll be going over some privacy and data security, and talking about how your information is secured, as well as how you can support, promote the census in your own community, in your own private lives, okay? So moving on, we want to talk about the fact that the census is a count of every single person living in the United States. Okay, that's all 50 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and other territories. And that includes everyone, including non-citizens and children of all ages. So even newborns are to be counted in the census. It happens every 10 years. It's called the decennial census. It takes place every 10 years as mandated by the Constitution. And it counts people at the place where they live and sleep most of the time. So some people have some complex living situations, but wherever they live and sleep most of the time is where they should be counted. And it counts people who do not have a usual place to live. So homeless people are counted. People in nursing homes are counted at those locations. So if you have a college student, for example, who's living in a dorm, although that's a little different right now, they may be counted at their dorm. If they're back home, it'll be up to you whether or not you count them there. Going on, why the census is important. The census is really important for the little tykes you see, the tyke you see in the picture there. It really supports a lot of services for children. So census data is used to decide how much money is given to communities for public service. And when I say the communities, this is how that money is distributed to the states, to the counties, to the cities. The census is used by the state of Illinois to decide where money is distributed statewide. It's used by the federal government to decide how much money each state gets for early childhood programs, schools and school lunch programs, public aid such as Link and Medicaid, CETA, LIHEAP programs, affordable housing such as Section 8, as well as hospitals and emergency services, which, as you would recognize, are really critical right now. A lot of the funding for emergency services and health care comes directly from census data as to how much money is distributed to the state of Illinois. And also, importantly, the census is used to decide representation. So based upon our population, the state of Illinois currently has 18 representatives in the House of Representatives in the United States Congress. We already know that we're going to probably lose one of those as well as a district because of population decline. However, should we have an undercount of our population, that's even just 1%, we stand to lose a second seat. So it's really important that every single person in the state of Illinois is counted accurately, that we get the representation in the United States Congress, and our votes count for our state and our communities. So April 1st was National Census Day. However, that was not the day you had to do your census. That was our call to action day, but we've moved on since then, obviously. However, now through April 30th is what we call the self-response phase. That's been pushed back into June and July. So even once they start doing door-to-door canvassing, they're still asking that you go online and complete the census. So if you have in May or June, when they start door-to-door canvassing, if you get a note saying we visited you and you weren't home, you can still go online and complete the census. It's not a deadline, it runs out. You can complete the census online, by phone, or by mail in advance, now probably through June at this point, okay? But the goal was that in May, census workers would start visiting homes. The government has had to push that back due to the COVID-19 crisis. However, they will be doing that. However, we really want to encourage people to use the online resources at 2020census.gov to do their census online, complete the mail-in survey that should have already arrived at your home, as well as you can do it on the phone. And we'll go over that also. Okay, so as I said, there are 3 ways to respond early: online, by phone, and by mail. And understand, if you misplace your invitation, that the paper reminder or survey that comes to your house, if you lose it, you can still complete the census online and by phone. You can call in at 844-330-2020 for English. And you can call in for Spanish at 844-468-2020, as well as a variety of other languages: Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese. Those 13 languages are all available both online and on the phone. However, if you have another language, like say if you're from Pakistan and speak Urdu, there are language guides available in 59 other languages, as well as in Braille. So for people who are visually impaired, they can receive a Braille application, as well as large print for people who have visual problems that need a larger print, okay? So we're asking people to complete their form by April 30th. However, that is not a cutoff. So we'd like you to complete it as soon as possible, but April 30th is not a cutoff, but please get that in. We really want to get these numbers up and make sure every single person in the state is counted. Okay, the invitation you see is what it will look like. This is what you should get coming to your house. You'll get an envelope from the census with this form inside, basically saying that you reply to them at my2020census.gov. This is asking you to do it online or by phone. You will also have a census ID on this form in this blank spot. So the census ID is specific to your residence address. So if you are in a multi-unit building, there will be one for each apartment. for example, and you will have an identifier for that apartment that you're to respond to. If you do not have this, if you don't receive it, you can still go online at my2020census.gov and put in your address to complete your census. So when you go to my2020census.gov, you will see this page, and I've circled in red here, you'll start questionnaire. That's where you start your census, and you see below here in blue, we have English, Espanol, and several other languages. You can click on any one of those to switch over to that language, okay? In addition, this is at the actual login page on the census. So that census ID would go in the boxes. However, as I've highlighted in red by the arrow, if you do not have a census ID, if you did not receive your questionnaire, if it got lost, the dog ate it, you can still complete your census. Click there. It will ask you some questions about what is your address. You put that in and it will find it for you. Additionally, you can call in and give them your address. And that number is also the same as the English I gave you before, but at 2020census.gov, you can always look it up, and you can call in and do your census over the phone in those 13 languages that include English and Spanish. Okay, so the questions themselves are, how many people were living or staying in this house, apartment, or mobile home on April 1st, 2020? Okay, so once you include everybody living in your house, not just relatives. So if you have a friend staying short term who's been displaced for some reason, they should be included. If you're keeping a child of a family member, they should be included if they're staying there for an extended period of time. Okay, and they ask, were there any additional people staying there? Now they ask that question because historically people have often only included relatives. So we want to make the point, you are not to only include people you're related to in your home. Any person living in your home should be included on your census survey. Okay. Now the third question is actually multi-part. However, you would only answer one of this part. The question is this house, apartment, or mobile home owned by you or someone in this household with a mortgage or loan, including home equity loans? So are you still paying off your home in some fashion? Or is it owned by you or someone in the household free or clear without a mortgage or loan? Or are you renting? Or are you occupying your space you live in without payment of rent? Now, what some people question that, like, what does that mean? It's that you may have a child or a parent or elderly parent who lives in an attic or basement apartment or an in-law suite, in-law apartment that you could rent, but you're allowing them to live there rent-free. They would receive their own census questionnaire. They would complete their own for that space, and they would say they're occupying it without rent if you're not charging them rent. However, keep in mind that's only if it's a separate living unit where you could actually rent it. If it's a separate room, like a basement bedroom or an attic bedroom, you just include them on your census as part of the household. Number 4, what is your telephone number? This is important because we have a lot of people in this country. We have more than 300 million Americans, and somebody's going to make a mistake. The census wants to be able to call you back and ask you to complete the question. It's like if you leave something out, they'll call you back to get that answer. If they don't understand something you've written, they may call you back to clarify what you've written. And that's why they need your telephone number in case of errors. Okay, next up, the question is, question 5, what is person 1's name? Person 1 is the head of household. If you are a couple, one of you will make the choice of who's going to be listed as head of the household. This next person will be person number 2. So person 1, head of household, should fill out the census for the entire household. Then what is person 1's sex? Now, this has come up a few times. People have asked questions like, well, what if someone is transgender or non-binary, gender conforming? The United States government only gives you the option of 2 choices. And we want to make it clear that while we respect absolutely everyone as an individual in this country, the government has only evolved to make 2 choices. So we ask you, please make a choice here of male or female, because it's so important that everybody be counted. Because if you don't complete it, they will actually have to send someone to your home to get an answer from you. So it's really important to be counted for your community. So please fill it out and make a choice that you most closely affiliate with. Same thing when it comes to race and ethnicity. So question 7 is, what is person 1's age and their date of birth? Question 8 is actually multi-part. It's going to say, is this person of Hispanic or Latino or Spanish origin? And it breaks that down. It will say, are you Cuban? Are you Mexican or Mexican American? And are you Puerto Rican? And then are you on some other Latin American, South American heritage, such as Peruvian, Guatemalan, Brazilian, etc. And you can write those in. Okay. Now, some people ask, well, we have a very diverse country. You may have one parent who is Venezuelan and another parent who is Cuban. And for you, you would have to decide what you're going to put in those boxes. They're gonna leave that up to you to decide what your affinity is with those populations and how you relate as that person. Okay. Next, question 9: what is person 1's race? There's a lot of options here. As I just mentioned, we have a very diverse country. You may have parents of different races. You may have grandparents of multiple races, and so you can write in that you are Nigerian, African American, and Chinese. Okay, so you can put in, you can list more than one race on your census survey as your answer. So you can say, I am Black, I am also Chinese, I am Latino, and I'm from Mexico, and I'm also white. Okay, so you can do all those things, so you can get as specific as possible, and please do. Next up is, if you're a single person living alone and you complete question 9, you're done. Okay, that's all you have to do. You're finished with your census. However, if there are additional people living in your home, you're then prompted to continue to finish the rest of the questions. So you'll move on to question 10, we'll print the name of person number 2. And even if that's a roommate, that's person number 2. Does this person usually live with you or stay somewhere else? How is this person related to you? And in that, you would put, is this person your spouse? Is this person your child or sibling? Is this person your parent? So moving on from that, for every additional person in your household, there will be 7 questions on a page of 7 questions that we just went, the same questions that we just went over. So the questions do not change, but there will be 7 questions about each additional person in your household, including babies. Okay, so make sure you count the children and count anybody not related to you. And it does not matter if you're a citizen or not. There is no citizenship question on the census. The questions I just read to you are all the questions that are on the census. Okay, so keep in mind, the census will not ask your immigration status. Okay, so this is a sample of how the survey actually looks. So when you log on, you will see these boxes, and you can just check them off. It's very simple, very straightforward to complete, and it usually only takes about 5 minutes. I filled it out for the 2 people in my household, and it took me about 6 minutes to complete. Okay, so it's very quick and easy. So keep in mind, census workers are out in the community. The census is always there. They perform other duties besides the 10-year census. You know, they do the monthly jobs report, for example. So you might see them in your neighborhood this time when they start doing the door-to-door canvassing. You'll see them dropping off census materials, doing quality checks, and collecting responses for other census work, such as the American Community Survey, which I've discovered they are doing right now also. So you may see a census worker visiting for other purposes other than the decennial census in your neighborhood. Okay, so how do you know if a census worker is official? I've included a picture here. They often carry a case like this that says United States Census Bureau, as well as a laptop or a phone that should say Census Bureau on it. The worker will have a valid ID hanging around their neck, and it should be prominent. They should show it to you. It should have their photograph. It should have an expiration date, and it should have a watermark that says United States Department of Commerce. The Census Bureau is a part of the Department of Commerce. It's a division of the Department of Commerce. So their badges do not say Census Bureau. Their badges say U.S. Department of Commerce. Okay, if it does not have an expiration date, it is not valid. Okay, now the thing I want to really iterate here is that if you do your census in advance, you don't have to worry about someone coming to your house. They really want you to fill it out online, on the phone, or by mail early, so they don't have to send someone to your home. So do all these things to avoid a visit, okay? They may also be carrying a census carrying case, as the picture shows, as well as other materials such as notice of visit cards. So if you do wait and the census worker comes to your home and you're not there, they will leave a notice of visit card in your door to let you know they visited, they attempted to meet with you, and that they will be returning. However, once you get that notice of visit card, you have 2 days to still go online, on the phone, to complete your census before they will come back. So they won't just keep coming back. They'll give you 2 days to go on those other ways and still complete it before trying to visit you again, okay? And you can contact the U.S. Census Bureau at 800-923-8282 to check the validity of someone coming to your door. So if someone comes to your door and says they're from the census, you're not sure, you're suspicious of them, you can tell them they have to come back. And if you tell them they have to come back, they have to come back. They cannot demand that you talk to them right then and there. You can tell them you're not available. You don't have to open the door for them, you know, and you can tell, and you can say, well, I need to check. You can call this number at 800-923-8282 to verify their name and if they are actually working in your area, and just direct number to the Census Bureau. So that's something you can do. Also keep in mind, you do not have to open the door for census employees, okay? They will take your answers through the door. So if they come to your door and you're not comfortable, you can say, yes, I'll answer your questions, but you have to stay out there. You do not have to open the door. They do not have to see identification from you. There's nothing for you to sign. It's like just as if you were online or doing it by mail or on the phone, they do not have to see you. So you can talk to them through a locked door, okay? So getting help for the census. If you need assistance, please direct yourself or anyone else to 2020census.gov. That's where you can complete your census, as well as get information, watch videos about the census, as well as call in to talk to somebody over the phone and fill it out on the phone, and apply for census jobs. You can also text 987-987. This number works in both English and Spanish. You can text that number in English or Spanish, and they will answer your questions if you have a question about the census, okay? You can complete the census by phone, as said, in English, again, 844-330-2020. Keep in mind, this presentation is being recorded, and that we will have it available afterwards, so you don't need to take pictures of your screen. Sorry about that, I should have told you that in advance. But also the Spanish, 844-468-2020, as well as 11 other languages are available at 2020census.gov. You can just select the language of your choice. You can ask others to help you. If you have a family member who needs assistance, who has a disability, or who has a limited reading proficiency, they can ask others to assist them. We suggest you ask a family member or a close friend to help you complete the census, or put them on the phone with the census at the 844-330-2020 number to have the census employee talk to them and complete their census questionnaire over the phone. Okay. But also always avoid, whoever you talk to, avoid giving the impression that you're a census employee. Never make people think that you work for the census. Just let them know that you're just doing them a favor and trying to convey and educate them about the census. We are available, Illinois Action for Children. We have staff available to answer some questions at Census 2020 at actforchildren.org. If you'd like us to give another presentation to an organization such as your church or the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club parents, we are available to do, we are doing webinars, and we are available to do other webinars for other organizations, and they can email us at census2020 at actforchildren.org. Okay. Now, who's often missed in the census? This is really important for our communities because particularly communities of color, Blacks and Latinos are the #1 communities that are undercounted in the census. And typically it's the children who are most undercounted, okay? So hard to count populations, Blacks and Latinos historically have been undercounted, resulting in under-resourced communities. So when Blacks and Latinos are not counted, it often results in overcrowded classrooms, underfunded hospitals and other services for your neighborhoods and communities, okay? 817,000 people in Illinois have at least one undocumented family member. Because we have a large undocumented population in this state, a lot of people are fearful of participating in the census. We ask you please participate in the census and include every person in your family, including those who are undocumented. The census will not ask you if those family members are there. It will not ask you their immigration status. So there's nothing in the census to designate them as undocumented. We just want to know how many people are in your home and their ages and their genders. So please complete it and encourage people who are undocumented in your families to participate, okay? And fill it out and include them in the census so that every single person is counted and we get the resources for our communities that we deserve. So children younger than 5 years old are importantly the most undercounted group. However, also is that racial and ethnic minorities, Black men in particular, are undercounted, but so are Latinos in high numbers, and especially if they are both foreign born, if they're undocumented, if they have limited English, if they're living in poverty. And you can see from this, a lot of these people fit into multiple of these categories. That you can be disabled and living in poverty with limited English and being undocumented. So when you have multiples of these, you're even more unlikely to be counted. So we want to make sure we encourage everyone in our community, no matter what their status, no matter what their situation, is that they should make sure they are counted. Okay, if you do not receive a census questionnaire, please still encourage someone to go to 2020census.gov and submit their information to complete the census, because they can still do it on their own, even if they did not receive an invitation. That's important. Okay, so as we said, young children are at the highest risk of being undercounted. About 1 million children under the age of 5 were missed in the last count. Children as a whole are often still undercounted, but young children should be counted where they live and sleep most of the time, including newborns. Some people have very complicated living situations, so a child may migrate between 2 different households. They should be counted wherever they live and sleep most of the time. However, if you are not sure a child has been counted, count them in your household. If you do not know that child's been counted somewhere else and they sleep in your household most of the time or part of the time, please make sure you count them. The risk is that they will not be counted, that more than they will be overcounted, okay? Classically, Black and Latino children are the most likely to be undercounted. So we want to make sure that that does not happen this time. Illinois had one of the largest number of children undercounted. Over 36,000 children under the age of 5 were missed in 2010. And just over half of that was in Cook County. Most of those people were on the south side and in the south suburbs of Chicago. So it's really important that we get all of our children counted, but as well as all of our residents. That includes all our undocumented residents, that includes all racial and ethnic minorities and people with disabilities. Children are often undercounted because they live in 2-parent households and neither one counts them. The families living in temporary housing The parents don't know they should count children. So encourage every parent you know that yes, the children should be included. If the children live in a multi-generational home, if they live with a grandparent or great-grandparent, that grandparent or great-grandparent should count them. They should, they should make sure they count them, and especially foster children. Foster children often go overlooked. It is not about counting relatives. You are to count every single person living in your household, okay? Not just your relatives. So, and temporary residents count too. So if you have someone staying with you, even part-time or for a short period of time for an extended period, say someone's staying with you for a couple of months this summer, when you're doing the census, include them in your census. If they were there on April 1st, please include them. If you haven't completed your census and they're there now, please complete it as soon as possible and include every person, even people who are living with you temporarily. We're not talking to people who are vacationing, but people who are staying with you temporarily should be included in your census questionnaire, okay? Your privacy and data, this is a really important issue. We want to make sure that people understand that census data is never shared outside the Census Bureau. So that means your landlord, the police, Homeland Security, which includes ICE and immigration, the FBI and the IRS cannot access your census information. So if you have a tenancy, if you are living if you have more people living in your house than is allowed under your lease, your landlord cannot see your census responses. So please include every single person living in the house, because your landlord won't be able to see it and access that. So they won't know it. They can't find that out from you participating in the census. No one can use your census answers to reduce your benefits, to evict you, to deport you. They cannot gain access to this information. And Title 13 is a law covering the census. So disclosing census data can result in 5 years in jail or a fine of up to $250,000, so that people know that their information that they give to the census is protected, okay? And you cannot be arrested for refusing to answer the census. The census will also not ask you about citizenship status, and that's really important. And even that question is not on the census, and you need have no fear that will be used against you. Okay. Now, we really it's important that we beware of scams. There are a lot of people out there committing identity theft, etc. So during the 2020 census, we want to make sure that you avoid fraud. The census will never ask for your social security number. They will not ask for any bank, credit card, or financial information. They will not ask to see your utility bill. They will not ask you for money. They will not ask for your identification. And they will not ask to enter your home. As I said earlier, your census workers will stay outside. They should never ask to come in. If they ask to come in, they are not from the census. In addition to which, as I said earlier, you can answer the census taker through a locked door. You do not have to open the door, and they will stay out there and they will take your answers through the door, okay? So dues, verify the census taker comes to your home is legitimate, but I want to say this again and again, do it online, by phone, or by mail first to avoid this visit altogether, okay? So we want to make sure that people understand that if you do the other things first, you can avoid the visit, okay? You want to confirm that a questionnaire you received is the same as the sample. So the only questions on the census are the questions in this presentation that I already went over with you. If someone asks you other questions, they're not from the census, okay? Check this, the census mailing has a return address of Jeffersonville, Indiana. So if you get a mailer that isn't from Jeffersonville, Indiana, it's not from the census. That's their mailing house, and if you get something else, it's fraudulent, okay? The website address is 2020census.gov. You can say census.gov and my2020census.gov. But the end will say census.gov. There will be nothing else, okay? So to make sure you're on the right website, the end will always say census.gov. Do not give out your social security number, mother's maiden name, bank or credit card information. As I said earlier, real census workers will not ask this information. Don't reply to any emails you receive. I'd say delete them. The census is not sending anybody emails. There's not a question or space on your census questionnaire for you to input your email. So the census does not have your email address. So you should not be receiving emails from the census. If you do get something sent as from the census, delete it. Don't trust caller ID. There's scammers who try to do that. So you could check to make sure they're from the census. But also, if they ask you anything that's not on the census questions that I just gave you, they're not from the census. Okay. And as I said earlier, don't let them into your home. Real census workers will not ask to come in. Okay. And we want you to support the census. Complete a pledge card. Or in this case, post flyers in your offices or online, share information in your social network in particular. If you have Facebook or Instagram, please post to your family and friends that they should participate in the census. That it's really important that everyone in our communities get counted. Be a census cheerleader. Make sure everyone's encouraged to educate others about the census. Talk to your friends and family. If you're, and a lot of people are staying home now, but they're still in contact with their friends and family, make sure they know about the census and that it's important to complete it, because a lot of people maybe not historically may not have participated in the census. We want them to do it this time. So help us spread the word. Make sure everybody, your friends, family, everyone you come in contact with knows about the census and to participate in it. Okay. So we want to make sure that, we are here to assist you, and we want you to encourage others in your sphere of influence to, share word about the census, its importance, and to complete it. If you do nothing else, complete your own census. These are some outreach tools that Illinois Action for Children has available. We have our fact sheets, which are 2 smaller ones. We have them both English and Spanish. If someone needs them, you can email us at 2020 census at actforchildren.org. That's at the end of this presentation, and we email you copies of the the census fact sheet in both English and or Spanish. So that you can share that with other people. So we can email it to you. You can email it to your friends and family to help them understand the importance of the census and any details about the census. Okay, and these are some activities you can do at home. We really take a census sign that says "I count." Take a picture of you and your family with a note that says you completed the census, and post it on your social media. Read a story about it. Draw a family tree, and make sure everybody in the family, in the household, is counted. As I said, sorry, not just in the family, but in the household is counted. Put them all on your family tree. Take a picture of it. Post it on your Facebook, post it on your Instagram, your Twitter, or whatever social media you use, and share that with friends and family. And as well as have a dance off. On TikTok, we have some people who've been doing dance videos, and we'd encourage everyone else, like if you have your kids at home with you, do a quick dance video and post it on your social media as well, and send us a link to it. We'd love to see it. We'd love to post it also and share it, but share it with your friends and family if no one else. So there are still census taker jobs available. So we really want people to know that 2020census.gov is where they can apply for census jobs, and Illinois public aid recipients can work as census takers without losing their benefits or eligibility status. Okay, so it's a carve out from the Department of Agriculture, which administers SNAP, which used to be called food stamps. So you can work, public aid recipients can work temporarily as a census worker because they are temporary part-time jobs. They're allowed to work as census takers without it influencing their benefits and impacting their benefits. Okay, so thank you all for listening to us today and joining us for this presentation. We want to make sure, if nothing else, to count everyone in your house, including all kids and babies in the census. As I said, my name is Derek Michaels. You can reach us at 2020census at actforchildren.org. And do you have any questions?
Thank you, Derek. This is Liz speaking. We do have 2 questions right now and maybe a couple more. as people type in their questions. So the first one is, can a pregnant woman count her unborn baby that should be due during this time?
No. And I'll explain. The cutoff for the census was April 1st. So if you are currently pregnant, your baby, unfortunately, it's an interesting question because your baby, according to the census, the baby does not count. If you include them in the census, they will ask you the date of birth. So, even if you do, keep in mind that if you put in the date of birth, the census will see that and they'll decide if they're going to include that child or not. And most likely they will not be included because they missed the cutoff of April 1st for the census. So because it doesn't ask just the age of the baby, it asks the date of birth. So if the date of birth is after April 1st, the census will probably exclude that child in the count. But if you put them in, that's your choice. But understand the census will probably exclude them.
Thank you. Our next question is, a couple that is separated and have children, who claims the children? If children stay 1 week with the mother and another week with the father.
Okay, so unlike for tax situations, it really doesn't matter. My attitude is, as long as you count the children, count them. It doesn't matter if they stay in equal time in each household, it doesn't matter which one you count them in. I'm assuming you live in the same county, so they should be counted just by one of the parents. What you could do is simply give the other parent a call and say, I've already counted the children in the census. But if that's not feasible for whatever reason, if you are not sure those children have been counted, please count them. The risk is not overcount of our children. The risk is undercount. So, and the census does have mechanisms to try to figure it out. However, it's more important that you count them and there be an overcount in that one particular household than you not counting them at all because you think somebody else did. If you do not know they've been counted, please count them.
Thank you. Our next question is, I completed the census online, but I continue to receive mail about completing it. Is this normal?
Yes, it is. What happens is the census is such a large operation. They already had a lot of the stuff printed and scheduled to be sent out. So the census sends out the initial questions and then they have the reminder set for certain dates. So from the time you filled it out, they probably already had that mail sitting in their mail house ready to go, and they weren't going to go through it to take out the ones that had already responded. So if you receive mail after you've already completed it, just ignore it and throw it away. You don't have to do it again. You don't have to do it the one time. You may still get mail though, because they'd already had it scheduled and it's such a big undertaking, they couldn't go through and pull yours out.
Thank you. Our next question is, how are college students counted?
Okay, this can be a little bit complicated. Okay, however, think of it this way. If your college student lives at home with you and goes to school from your house, you count them at your home. If your college student was living in a dorm on campus or in a college apartment near that campus and they've come back home only because of the COVID-19 crisis, the census is asking that they be counted at their college or apartment address where they were in school. So if they've only come back home now because of the COVID-19 crisis and their college has gone on hiatus, they are to be counted wherever they were staying at that college. Okay, so they can go on themselves to 2020census.gov and put in their own census for them locating themselves at that college or university. Okay, however, if they've moved back home permanently, you should count them in your household.
Thank you. So that's our last question for now. But if anybody else has questions that they think of later, please email us at 2020census@actforchildren.org. And thank you so much, Derek.
You're all welcome. Thanks everybody for attending. We really appreciate you to help us get this word out about the census and getting people to participate. Have a great day.